Hello, dear friends. Very little is said about the Hindu alchemical tradition, and it is very important. Open in peace. The Mystery of Soma, the drink of gods, Elixir of Immortality. The Rishis keep the secret. It comes from Persian tradition. It was revealed by the sun god. Aldous Huxley mentioned Soma. Let's start. Soma was a sacred drink from ancient India that is mentioned in texts of Hindu tradition, such as the Vedas. Consumption of Soma was considered a form of communication with the gods and was believed to grant supernatural powers, including immortality. The Rig Veda describes Soma as a drink that induces spiritual exaltation and divine inspiration. It contains many hymns praising its energizing and intoxicating qualities. Soma is variously presented as a god, an ambrosia of immortality drunk by the gods, and a ritual elixir with spiritual powers. The symbolic principle of Soma adds to human consciousness an affective dimension of intoxication, delight, joy, and pleasure. Unlike most entheogens, considered mediators with the divine, Soma was recognized as a god in its own right. Its nature remained a mystery for several thousand years. It is possible that some wise rishis today preserve the secret of its formula. The texts describe that it was prepared by extracting the sap from the stems of a certain mountain plant. A widely held theory is that ancient Soma was based on hallucinogenic mushrooms. A more popular opinion today is that the ancient Aryans brought to India a drink based on a combination of cannabis ephedra and opium. The English historian Michael Wood, specialized in investigating the origin of the Vedas, says he is in a position to affirm that the drink consumed under the name of Soma 2500 years BC was prepared with poppy, cannabis, and ephedra. According to the Vedas, its use should be moderate since it had alienating properties. Description: in Hindu mythology, the term soma refers to a medical and sacred substance that plays an important role in ancient Vedic scriptures, particularly in the hymns of the Rig Veda. Soma is considered one of the most important drinks in Vedic religious rituals and is associated with immortality and connection with the divine. Despite its importance, Soma is described rather enigmatically in ancient texts, and its exact nature has been subject of debate and interpretation. In Vedic hymns, Soma is associated with the moon and vegetation, and is mentioned as a substance extracted from a plant. Vedic priests performed elaborate rituals to prepare and consume Soma during their religious ceremonies. The liquid is described as a golden or bright red, and is then poured into milk as a healing balm. The taste is described as sweet, lovely, and pleasant. Whoever consumes it enters a stimulating ecstasy that increases vitality, creativity, and intelligence. We are told that it makes one happy, mentally powerful, increases sensuality and beauty, prolongs life, and even frees one from sinful reactions. The Rig Veda says, in quotes, "We have drank Soma and have become immortal. We have reached the light. The gods discovered. Now, what, what can the malice of an enemy do to us? What, O immortal, can the deceit of mortal man do?" Origin: this entheogen gained a privileged place in the magical religious ceremonies of the Aryans who, 3,500 years ago, came down from the north of the Indus Valley, where they spread their cult. Brahmin officiants drank it during sacrifices in honor of Agni, god of fire, and Chandra, goddess of the moon. It was an important ritual drink among the ancient Indo-Aryans. the cultures of the Vedic civilization before Hinduism, and the great Persian cultures. In the book Thenda Vesta, Soma has an entire chapter dedicated to it. In the Persian tradition, Haoma, who is the same Vedic god Soma, tells Zoroaster that it was the god of the sun who first revealed it. Over the centuries, the precise identity of Soma has been the subject of speculation, with debate over whether it was a specific plant or a metaphor for spiritual experience. In any case, Soma plays a fundamental role in Hindu mythology and religion, and its importance in ancient Vedic rituals has left a significant mark on the religious tradition of India. In both the Zoroastrian tradition and the Vedic tradition, the drink is identified with the plant that produces it, and in both it is personified as a divinity. Some considered that it would be the symbolic representation of the supreme truth. In the novel Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, Soma was a drug that was used in a futuristic society to keep people in a state of happiness and conformity. In this context, Soma represents the pursuit of happiness through the suppression of emotions and conflictive thinking. Speculations. The debate over the exact botanical identity of the Soma mentioned in the Vedic text has been a long-standing scholarly topic and continues to be the subject of research and discussion. The Vedic hymns make poetic and mystical references to Soma, but do not provide detailed botanical descriptions. Additionally, over the centuries, there have been many different interpretations and theories as to what the true identity of Soma might be. The main problem in identifying Soma lies in the lack of specific botanical descriptions in ancient Vedic texts, which often refer to Soma in poetic and symbolic terms. Additionally, over the centuries, there have been many different theories as to what the true identity of Soma might be. Since there is no clear consensus among scholars and experts regarding to the exact identification of Soma, it remains a mystery in Hindu mythology and the history of religions. It should be noted that the symbolic and mystical nature of Soma can make its botanical identification even more complex. Flaws. The origin of Soma is speculated to be the legendary elixir of blue lotus flowers, known as the Soma of the Ancients, a relaxing potion for the body, mind, and the spirit. The lotus has long been considered sacred in many of the world's religions, especially in India and Egypt, where it is considered symbolic of the universe itself. Rooted in the mud, the lotus rises to bloom clean and bright, symbolizing purity and resurrection. The leaves and flowers grow high above the water. He is often compared to the enlightened being who emerges unblemished from the chaos and confusion of the world. There is also speculation about Sarcostema acidum, known as acid milkweed or desert soma, which is one of the plants that have been proposed as a possible identification of soma, but there is no definitive consensus on the matter. The debate over whether soma mentioned in Vedic text is equivalent to the ephedra plant has been a topic of discussion in academic research, but there is no scientific consensus on the matter. Ephedra is a plant that contains stimulant alkaloids such as ephedrine and has been used in some religious and medical traditions in the past. The identification of soma in Vedic text with fly agaric, a type of fungus known as the fly swatter mushroom, is a theory that has been proposed by some researchers and scholars, but remains highly controversial and lacks solid evidence. Amanita muscaria is a mushroom that contains psychoactive compounds and has been used in some indigenous and shamanic traditions in various parts of the world. Some argue that its hallucinogenic properties could have been interpreted as soma in ancient rituals, but it is very toxic. Other studies talk about honey, pomegranate, hemp, wine, opium, wild rhubarb, or Peganum harmala, whose alkaloids harmaline coincides with the active principle of ayahuasca, but no one knows with certainty the origin of soma. Others even talk about Mormon tea, which is an infusion made with a mixture of herbs and served hot. This drink is known for its absence of caffeine and its smooth, confirming flavor. Includes herbs such as chamomile, peppermint, lemongrass, and other caffeine-free herbs. It is a popular drink among members of the Mormon Church and is served at gatherings and social events within the community. Hindu alchemy. The term Rasa Shastra refers to an ancient discipline within traditional Indian medicine known as Ayurveda. The word Rasa means mercury in Sanskrit, and Shastra translates as treatise or science. Taken together, Rasa Shastra would roughly translate as the science of minerals and metals in the context of Ayurvedic medicine. The Rasendra Mangala was composed by Nagarjuna Siddha in the Sanskrit language and is one of the oldest surviving alchemical works. In Russia, Ratnakara, Nagarjuna addresses issues related to alchemy and the preparation of medicine based on minerals and metals, which are key aspects of Rasa Shastra. His work in this field influenced the Ayurvedic tradition and the preparation of medicines throughout history. Importantly, Nagarjuna Siddha should not be confused with the famous Nagarjuna, a well-known and studied Buddhist philosopher. They are different historical figures who lived at different times and excelled in different fields. Mercury. Alchemy is an esoteric discipline that uses symbolic and allegorical language to transmit its teachings about the search for perfection and the transformation of the human soul. Mercury in Hindu alchemy did not necessarily refer to the toxic mercury we know today, but instead symbolized fluidity, duality, and the capacity for change. It was seen as a substance that had the ability to bind and dissolve other elements, reflecting the idea of transmutation and spiritual purification. Modern medicine finds that mercury is very toxic and that its toxicity is not due to the presence of impurities. While mercury has antimicrobial properties and used to be widely used in Western medicine, its toxicity does not justify the risk of using it as a health product today. The mention of mercury in alchemical traditions has to do with symbology and the search for transformation, and does not necessarily refer to toxic metallic mercury we know today. In alchemy, substances and elements were often used as symbols of spiritual processes and internal transformation, and were not a literal description of chemical elements. Gold. The term white gold dust refers to a substance that is mentioned in some ancient texts related to the ancient Egypt and other ancient cultures. In some Hermetic texts, as well as in some Egyptian inscriptions, reference is made to a substance called mufkut or shemana, which some have interpreted as wild gold dust. In the context of alchemy, this powder has been associated with the quest for spiritual transmutation or immortality. Aurous oxide is a substance that has been proposed by some researchers as a possible identification for white gold dust mentioned in ancient texts, including some from ancient Egyptian culture. This dust was what was found in the famous secret cavern of the Busegi Mountains. It appeared on television, and then the topic was censored because the television presenter received a threatening phone call. The Tree of Life. There is also the concept of a Tree of Life in Egyptian mythology. The ancient Egyptians, believed in eternal life and the survival of the soul after death, and many of their religious practices and beliefs were related to these concepts. Nat is the goddess of the sky, and she is often depicted extending over the world with her body arched over the earth. Her hands and feet were considered the supporting columns of heaven. Nat is depicted as a tree that supports the sky with its branches and roots, which could be interpreted as a symbolic connection between heaven and earth. In ancient Egypt, the Persia tree, also known as the Aisha tree, was believed to be related to resurrection and eternal life. It is mentioned in the pyramid texts, which are ancient Egyptian funerary texts, as a symbol of renewal and regeneration. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.